Hey, let's get this started, okay? I don't have time for any bullshit. Listen, hit that like and subscribe, will you? What's wrong with you? Just do it. And this box guy will be on in a minute. But listen, nobody needs this kind of look. I've been floating around in this godforsaken zero cheese, okay? No pizza. I don't know what this spaceship has on it. It's got one. I don't even know if it's a toilet. It's the most comfortable place for me to hang out, but it's basically like a vacuum you hook up to your. I mean, it's fun. Don't get me wrong, but I don't need this. Anyway, just like and subscribe and what else? Patreon, something, super chat like an asshole, and it's important that you would. Hey, get the. All right, just get back in your room. Show me. Shut up. Apologize, folks. That won't happen again. He gets out of his cage sometimes, and I feel bad, because he gets all pent up and he starts whining, and then I forget what a dick he is, and I let him run around the ship for a little while, and then he starts, obviously, he starts messing with a retroactive vortex scanner. Yeah, it's a new unit. Anyways, it's the only thing that can allow us to, basically get to our galaxy and back to yours on a regular schedule. Do you like this? Is this playing well? As part of the myth of the show. I think we should do that. I think we should eventually. I might actually have to build this motherfucker to get out of here. So and you're all welcome. Believe me, when I build a space station, it's going to be a crowd pleaser. It's going to basically be like a giant stadium, and there will be pretzels, I think is the name of the movie. So welcome to the show, everybody. I'm on a little early because I felt bad about I was late last night because of the drive, but also I didn't get to do a show on Tuesday, and there's a bunch of shit like stacking up that I feel like we have to address because I find that in this ridiculous goddamn like tumultuous news cycle that we're all in, if I don't sort of put plant a flag in, or it's not even like a flag. It's like when you're climbing a mountain and you're freehand rock climbing, and you have to put an anchor in the rock so that what you're attached. You've got a good solid attachment for the next thing you're trying to tie together. Otherwise, you'll forget it in the tumult of trying not to fall. I don't know. It's a terrible analogy, but you get my point. There's just shit to cover. All the goddamn time. And not the least of which is, and let's see, first of all, hi, chat room. Hello. Can I just say, there are a couple of things. Many people were wondering whether Pete Hegseth was like the perfect guy for Trump to pick, or even good at all. And hello, CSL. And one of the, and I happen to think he is. I'm a controversial point. I think Hegseth is the perfect SecDef for Trump because they both have the same penchant for hiring useless, self-involved, egomaniacal, worthless assholes that they put in charge of really important positions where life and death and the values of America and the quality of life here are on the line, right? They both have a tendency to do those. And then many people know, and maybe they don't, I don't know. I don't want to tell you that. But there's been a purge at the Pentagon purge. And in the process of that, there's, after the Signalgate thing where Trump was like, why are you asking about that? Nobody cares. Behind the scenes, he was flipping the fuck out at everybody. He swore at Hegseth's team about how Elon was going to the Pentagon, and at the same run, he was yelling at Waltz, apparently. And nobody's really doing well. Remember, they were supposed to fix all this shit, and he was supposed to coast for the next 3 years and 9 months. and it's not working out so much. And so internally, White House internal knife fighting blamed for Pentagon suspensions. Okay, no, let's start here. I love you guys at the Daily Beast, but the Pentagon suspensions were because of the actions of the people involved and their inability to hide how amazingly shitty those actions are. Sharing classified documents, possibly leaking stuff to not to the press, but people like the fucking Heritage Foundation, as far as we know, or the Russians. And we'll get to that in a bit with Doge. Hashtag Doge is a goddamn heist. And that is becoming clearer and clearer to the people of this country, thanks to you guys, the sparklers. That's right. Hashtag Doge is a heist. And yours truly beating that thing like a dead horse, because people need to recognize, like, its ineffectiveness and the opaqueness of the employees and all that kind of stuff. It are subsidiary scandals to the greater scandal that it is a fucking heist. And we will dive into that even more in the coming days. But primarily, if you'll look, this is what, by the way, everybody in the White House looks like when Trump farts loudly and they're all pretending not to notice. Like, seriously, it just looks like. And Hegseth's like, I'm on duty. What was that? You're like, you're damn straight you're on duty. Duty cleanup. Okay, so 3 people have been suspended so far from Hegseth's sec def group. Let's see, Douglas Maggie, blah, blah, blah. There was a bunch of people yelling, who cares? The internal knife fighting is intensifying, is what this guy says. Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance, and Susie Wiles helped shut down Israel-USA joint attack on Iran's New York Times. This probably explains why Hegseth's aides were now being fired for supposed leaks. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that story. And this idea that they helped shut down the Israel-USA joint attack on Iran is not a bad thing. Like, that's war. That's enormous. Like, that is a real war against a real country with a real military, not like Iraq, not like Afghanistan. Iran, we would absolutely wipe out Iran in a very short order, but it would be horrifyingly violent and require a lot of death to do far more than Iraq or Afghanistan. It would be a prolonged thing. And they have a genuine Navy and they have a genuine Air Force. Also something that Iraq and Afghanistan, neither of them had, although I don't know where you would put the boats in Afghanistan, but you get the point. We'll get to that story in a second, because that's crucial. So he goes, this probably explains why 3 of Hegseth's aides have now been fired for supposed leaks. No, it doesn't. No, because all these assholes are saying that the word leak keeps coming up, and they keep reusing the word leak, like Trish Regan yesterday, like I pointed out. They keep using the word fucking leak instead of mishandling of classified information, which is the actual charge. They jump immediately to leak as if these fuckers were giving stuff to the press, as opposed to our enemies, their supporters, their financiers, which is way more fucking concerning. Okay. So you cannot jump immediately to we have the same problem this time we had last time, which is how they're trying to cover their ass. Hashtag Doge is a heist. Okay. And the Times wrote that, we'll look at this actual article in a second. The Times wrote that Israel's plans for imminent attack on Iran's nuclear sites were waved off by Trump in favor of more talks after months of internal debate over the best way to tackle the issue. Whatever, the back and forth. This is apocryphal story. It's bullshit. The idea that Trump was the peacemaker and like, no, it could destroy them, but I'm, bring me a small liar. All right. Sorry. Did anybody even remotely get that one? Hold on. I think, is it in here? Where? Nice.
Nice. Not thrilling, but nice.
Yeah. Treasure bath. So, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, feared any attack on Iran could get out of hand. Susie Wiles felt the same thing. Pentagon, let's see, was supported by Susie Wiles, Hegseth, and JD Vance. Basically, everybody in the fucking room. Except Mike Waltz, Captain Fuck Up. And the U.S. Command, which, by the way, I think is a misreading because a lot of the times especially the military heads in the Pentagon, their tendency is to go, we're always for taking action sooner rather than later, sir, but it's up to you. Are you guys up for this attack? Yes, I am, sir. So they all go, are you guys also up for waiting? Yes, we are, sir. We're prepared to go when you're prepared to go. That's how they talk. So anytime somebody brings up a war fight, they're immediately going to go, we're ready. Or our prep timetable is 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 18 days, 19 hours, whatever the fuck it is. That's how military guys talk about this stuff at that level, okay? So the guys around them, like fucking Waltz and these other dipshits who play like machismo pool in the, and they're like, yeah, I'm a tough guy, right? Because I'm standing next to you. You're a tough guy. We're both tough guys. That shit. Waltz is one of the guys who will immediately jump to starting shit. Everybody else is like, hang on a second, dum-dum. There are real world consequences here. And Trump, again, like, I don't know how he fucking can, because his whole thing is no new wars. I mean, it's over the minute he does it, but he's planning on doing it as far as you know. Brian Hughes told the Times that Trump's entire national security leadership team was on board with the Iran policy, which is whatever Trump fucking feels like. That's the hilarious part. President Trump has been clear Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and all options remain on the table. Okay, how many times have we heard that language before? And again, that's what's special about Trump. He's not a politician. He speaks like us, even though the statement is exactly what we've always heard from leaders in this situation, because that's all you can say. Now, the president has authorized direct and indirect discussions. Great, cool. So that's leadership for you. With Iran to make this point clear, but he's also made clear this cannot go on indefinitely, which is why he gave him a 2-month deadline, which I think is up next week. So, yeah. Colin Carroll, Chief of Staff of the Deputy Defense Secretary Stephen Freeberg, was suspended a day after Caldwell and Darren Selnick, both senior Hegseth advisors, beg your pardon, advisors. I start reading too fast and I don't care about vowels. Were escorted from the building. Politico reported that the leaks investigated included military plans for the Panama Canal and Elon Musk's visit to the Pentagon to discuss China. So this is the point I'm trying to make, okay? This is what the actual report said. Politico said this. New York Times references as well. And this is really fucking clear because all the right-wing media keep saying leaks as if this is all about the press stuff, which is this military plans for the Panama Canal, which there really weren't any leaked to the press. There was some, like, we're sending ships down there, but guess what? You'd fucking see them. Like, Trump himself said, we're sending troops down there. There was no leakage in, so far as I know, that much ahead of what it was, or that it was a big fucking secret. What may have been leaked, if you're going to leak stuff about military plans in the Panama Canal, that means you leaked it to the fucking Chinese. That's the first thought I would have. Not to the news media. An hour. I mean, what does Trump? I mean, would Trump fire people for saying something before he gets to say it, like jumping his punchline? Maybe. But since he digs in his heels on fucking everybody, I doubt it. This sounds like somebody being loose with that information on Signal someplace else in another chat room that they now know, a Chinese official had access to or some shit. And then Elon Musk's visit to the Pentagon to discuss China. Now, that is not a leak to the media. That wasn't the leak about his plan. Trump allegedly flipped the fuck out. And again, maybe it's just about being caught, but he'd been telling everybody with Elon in the office, No, he will stop himself if he's got conflicts of interest, and will stop him. And I trust him to stop himself. And all this. And then he finds out after he said that a half a dozen times in the White House that Elon Musk is going to the Pentagon to get briefed on our war plans against a potential shock and awe against China, or if they attack Taiwan, what our response will be. All the myriad of things that can happen. Okay, which is basically the only two ways it goes. So this piece of information, that means that the leaking and the mishandling, again, they fucking throw this word leak around. It starts to aggravate me. That it's really about mishandling of classified information, disseminating classified information to people who are not cleared to get it. And that would be this dumb motherfucker. This guy whose cars and batteries, most of them are made in China, outside of Shanghai, in his gigafactory, the biggest factory he has. With aluminum he gets almost exclusively from Russia. That's why it matters. And giving stuff about the U.S.'s response to China to Russia as leverage that they can use to get back in the good graces of China is valuable to the Kremlin. I have less of a concern about him, leaking this to the Chinese than I have him leaking this to the Russians so that the Russians can do Xi Jinping a favor. And then they owe Elon Musk. Does that make sense? Okay. Chat room, are you guys with me on this? And by the way, Aaron's good. We're sending love to her. We good? Yes? Okay, just checking. So you leak and mishandle yourself often? I don't think that's possible, quite frankly. Now, let's look at, let's see, click this guy. Let me open that. Because yeah, go away. So this is a new article this morning. Trump waved off Israeli strike after divisions emerged in his administration. No, he didn't. I'll tell you right now, the absurdity that somehow Trump is having truly deliberative conversations about this shit is gibberish, is nonsense, is hooey. It's horse shit. What Trump did was they came to him with news that Israel wants to do this. And Waltz is basically like, if you don't get on board, people are going to say you don't like Israel. And Trump more than likely was like, I said no new wars, and this will fuck with my current image. Therefore, tell Bibi to wait. I gave him 2 months. As soon as the 2 months are up, then we'll do it. But the idea that like it was, you'll see. But the idea that it was a truly deliberative thing, and I will say this. I will say the idea, the way they phrase it rather, as waved off, is exactly the level of depth of thought. No, not right now. I got the Saudis coming this fucking weekend, right? I'm golfing with the dude who threw Jamal Khashoggi in a fucking wood chipper. I can't be thinking about this right now. I'm trying to win the seniors golf championship at my own club by not playing again. Israel, played 9 holes in an 18-hole championship and still managed to win. Israel developed plans for attacking Iran nuclear facilities that would have required U.S. assistance, but some administration officials had doubts. Okay, that's never not going to be true. And if it is, you don't have an administration, you have a cult. And the other ones, like Tulsi Gabbard, for example, I don't think she's worried about the blowback and the danger to national security if we attack Iran or Israel does it. Iran supplies military support to Russia. Tulsi Gabbard likes Russia. She's worried that if they get attacked, they won't have the gear to send to Russia. In my humble and correct opinion. Israel had planned to strike Iran nuclear sites as soon as next month, but was waved off by President Trump in recent weeks in favor of negotiating a deal with Tehran to limit its nuclear program, according to the administration officials and others briefed on the discussion. So not surprising. And again, we had a fucking nuke deal. We had one. And he's like, it would have been expired by now. You would have extended it, stupid. If it's working, you continue. That was the whole point. That's why it had a sunset. Because you could check and make sure that they were meeting these points before you put the sanctions back on. The debate highlighted fault lines between the historically hawkish American cabinet officials and other aides, more skeptical that a military assault on Iran could destroy the country's nuclear ambitions and avoid a larger war. It resulted in a rough consensus for now against military action, with Iran signaling a willingness to negotiate. Israeli officials had recently developed plans to attack Iran nuclear sites in May. They were prepared to carry them out, and at times were optimistic the United States would sign off. The goal of the proposals, according to officials briefed on them, was to set back Tehran's ability to develop a nuclear weapon by a year or more. By the way, that languaging was to set back Tehran's ability to develop a nuclear weapon by a year or more. That language is meant to appeal to Trump. If he can't get a deal immediately, we'll just hit him. We can do it anytime we want. We'll set it like we hit them. They won't be able to do this for at least a year and a half. You won't have to worry about them through the midterms. They'll be fucked. That's the Israeli sales pitch on Iran. And they may be right, but they're wording it that way to appeal to Trump. For the record. That's why a year or more, because that's the kind of language you use to make Trump, who historically doesn't give a shit, about stuff. He just wants it off his plate and wants to delegate and blame. These are the two, that's the strategy he has. Okay. Almost all the plans would have required U.S. help, not to just defend Israel from Iranian retaliation, but also to ensure that an Israeli attack was successful, making it a central part in the attack itself. But largely intel, largely, bomber guidance and maybe some air support for their bombing runs, maybe, depending on the size of the aircraft, or literally having our bombers do the actual bombing while they lay cover, right? That would be the other strategy. And these things, these nuclear facilities are deep undercover. They are deep underground, and they will require more than MOABs. There's a theory, I will say, that occasionally when we speak of using the mother of all bombs, or the MOAB, secretly they're using a small tactical nuke. Not the kind that mushroom clouds out, but the kind that is based on a MOAB technology that would go further in and then, right? And that's why it's so effective. But the purpose isn't to irradiate the area. It's simply kind of like like depleted uranium bullets for piercing power and the depth of the attack. Okay. And in this case, that would be the high level secret discussions that they're talking about, and maybe why they're reticent to do it, thinking that Trump's thinking maybe we can just drop a bunch of MOABs on them after the fact. Okay. So just that, in my opinion, knowing the tech as well as I do, just from what's available just about anywhere. All right. That said, for now, Trump has chosen diplomacy over military action. In his first term, he tore up the nuclear Iran deal. But his second term, eager to avoid being sucked into another war in the Middle East, he's opened negotiations with Tehran, giving it a deadline of just a few months to negotiate a deal over its nuclear program. Speaking to reporters on Thursday, he took issue with the idea that he had waved off Israel, but acknowledged that negotiating with the Iranians was his preferred course. He added that he was not in a rush to support military action against Iran, but reiterated he did not want Tehran to have a nuclear weapon. I think that Iran has a chance to have a great country and to live happily without death. Sorry, but if we have an everlasting life bomb, I think we owe it to Americans in the name of Jesus to drop it on our own country without death. That's my first option. If there's a second option, I think it would be very bad for Iran, and I think Iran is wanting to talk. which is basically just holding a gun to their children's head. Because I got to say, is it bad in quotes for you to strike their nuclear facilities? Yeah. Is that what he's talking about? No. He's threatening civilians. That's what he means. When he talks like that, he's like, it would be very bad. You know, it's the same thing he did with North Korea. It'd be very bad. The worst thing, you know, fire and fury, right? There's no fire and fury on a fucking military base in the middle of the desert that barely anybody is at. And, you know, people sign up for the military knowing they're putting their life on the line. And the Iranian, you know, Republican or whatever the guard has, they, I'm sure, feel the same way, right? Chat, you still with me? This is a chattier show, more chattier show than usual. A couple of people in the chat have gone after me to give more of my own opinion pieces, and I think they're right on some degree, as opposed to just reacting to videos. Although I do enjoy the springboard. So here's the other part. Okay, so in the middle of all this, the possible attack on Iran in the next few weeks, that would be massive in scale. And I mean, in theory, again, you don't know how much bullshit these guys are floating around or how Trump kind of does tend to chicken out at the last second. It makes him look like a peacenik when in reality, it has a lot more to do with cowardice, right? And I mean, dude didn't even go to the return of our soldiers from Lithuania. Like, the idea that he actually gives any of this shit any kind of deep emotional thought is absurd. But the way that they are telling people under Hegseth to pound sand is very telling. Top Pentagon advisors placed on leave and leak investigation. And again, leaky leak. You can't leak a lie. Hashtag, you can't leak a lie. You can lie to the press, or you can give them information you're not supposed to. That's a leak. A leak is giving people information that is true that they're not supposed to have. So I don't want to hear any bullshit about fake news when it comes, and they still call it a leak. If they're calling it a leak, they're admitting that it's true. Politicians, you're on fucking notice. Right along with my 48-hour rule. Today's, from this day forward, you're not allowed to not know this. And I know a bunch of you watch the show. I know people on your staff show you clips. Don't ask me how I know that. I'm just saying you might want to change the admin password on your router that controls the cameras in your office. Anyways, that said, if it's you have 48 hours when you find out about something, whether it's Signal Gate or any of those things, you have 48 hours to get a briefing on it. Your staff can look it up, gather go to ChatGPT and go, what the fuck? And then it'll go, brrr, and you go, okay, here's a briefing document on it that you could peruse in 2 goddamn minutes. I don't want to hear you don't know about it. You can say, I didn't know about it till yesterday. Now, you might catch some shit for that, but you don't have to pretend to be stupid now. That's the problem I have. You can't stay stupid. You're not allowed. Not in this day and age. Sorry, it's too easy to look up. I do this all the time where we're watching a video and something comes up and we don't know the article. We don't know the bill that somebody's referencing because we got a lot of other shit in our lives and children and pets and shopping to do and groceries to worry about. Look, I used the word and I don't even feel like I'm in the 1800s. So you have to look it up immediately. But from that point on, we know about it. We might not know everything about it, but we sure can learn a lot fast. It's 2025. All right. So 48 hours. If you're in the intelligence community, you have 4. You have 4 fucking hours, especially if you're going to speak to Congress. You have 2 hours before and 2 hours after. Here's what happens. You're being called in to talk to the committee and you know a story is big, Signalgate. 2 hours before, your staff has 120 minutes to brief you on that particular story with everything that's relevant to what you need to talk about. Good? Two fucking hours. They can do it over lunch. You're going to eat something before you go to the committee hearing, and you're going to take a piss. They can stand next to you at the fucking urinal and read the briefing to you. They can email it to you, and you can have your phone read the document while you have headphones in while you're on the shitter. There's too many options. 2 hours before. Then, if during the meeting, the committee hearing, the press conference, somebody goes, hey, what about this? And while you know everything up to this point, but you don't know what they're talking about, you have 2 hours to give another statement after it's over. If you're in the intelligence community, 4 hours, that's it. 2 before, 2 after. Or you should know everything in 4 hours before anything happens. I'm being nice. Because if I can figure it out in that amount of time, so can you. And I don't have a staff of fucking 16 people paid for by the taxpayer. Asshole. Other than that, I have no opinion. Hashtag you can't leak a lie. Sign up for my Substack. I need to write a whole Substack on you can't leak a lie. By the way, the stroke of the pen fallacy is becoming a classic. I'm very proud of it. I will eventually, when I have some free time, write the hoverboard fallacy as well, because I think that's very important, as far as pop culture. But insofar as politics, which is obviously the bent right now until we broom this motherfucker, I think it's important that I try to stay somewhat focused. Maybe I need a break once in a while. I'll do it then. Anyways, here we go. So, total of 3 people, by the way, have been pitched out of this. 2 aides to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth were escorted from the Pentagon Tuesday. Now, the original story was this asshole, Dan Caldwell, this fucker. This guy was escorted from the building yesterday. Turns out his deputy was also escorted. And a third official followed on Wednesday as part of an investigation into unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information. Now, that is the key. This is what they call it. And this is important for all the media out there. Indie and, lamestream and traditional and heritage media, whatever the fuck you want to call it. All of you fuckers, listen to me. You're using the word leak, which assumes like 2/3 of the crime, the taking of the information from a place it is not supposed to be removed, either by your head and telling it someone or on a piece of paper. The dissemination of it to a third party, and the sort of quality and characteristics of that third party. These are the 3 elements of the unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information. When you say it's a leak, it automatically assumes the press in the other 2 parts, that you are taking it to a member of the press, and that member of the press is therefore presenting it for either undermining the administration and its choices or artificially supporting them, giving them a heads up because the story's going to suck. So you guys should know about it ahead of time, so you can, maybe help us work on our talking points, Sean Hannity, right? That's the assumption. None of that can be assumed from that. And if anything, from Signalgate, it wasn't the point that Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic was in that. It's that an unauthorized person who had not taken the oath of office to protect these things and would not been briefed on how to deal with top secret information was in the chat. The fact that he was a journalist is ancillary to the fact that an undisclosed person, somebody who was not supposed to be there, was accidentally / on purpose added to the chat. The fact that he's a journalist has nothing. If he was a fucking plumber, it'd still be a problem, because he could say it to a dude at the bar and like, I got on this fucking Signal chat. I don't know what the fuck was going on over here. And then he's sitting next to Boston Brian, and he says it to Boston Brian. Boston Brian gets on his show and goes, they're going to fucking attack Iran, right? Right, which I believe he would do. Bless his heart. I would hope, right? That's so it doesn't matter that he's a fucking journalist. That's, they want to make it about being a journalist because they built up this distrust, this fuck the media bullshit, this fake news storyline. They've built that up so long that that's they've got a guaranteed boogeyman that the right can kind of go, oh, no, they're leaking to the press. They're undermining him. This is what happened last time. That's what Trish Regan was saying. That's what Glenn Beck was saying. That's what fucking O'Reilly was trying to spackle shut. Same shit. Penny Johnson. They're all trying to run, just walk around wiping Hegseth's ass. When, using this myth that it went to the press. When the fact that Goldberg was in the chat and was press is immaterial to the fact that that material was leaked to someone not authorized to have it, period. And if this was Hillary Clinton, if it was fucking Bill Clinton, if it was fucking Hunter Biden or Shemp Biden or, Frank Biden, they would be flipping the fuck out. But because it's Hegseth, everybody in right-wing media spheres is running around wiping Hegseth's ass, trying to make it look like it's the press weaseled their way in. The deep state snuck him in through a back door. When in reality, Waltz is a fuck-up. And Trump hires fuck-ups because he runs a company of fuck-ups, and now he's running an administration of fuck-ups because he's a fuck-up. Okay. And so when you see this, unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information, whenever you hear anybody refer to it as a leak, they are assuming it is going to the press. Now, if they know that it's going to the press, then they should say so. This person was busted for talking to me, and now that they're being busted, I can out them as a source. But unless they know that that person was a source for someone, they don't know it was a leak. That's also. Dan Caldwell and Darren Selnick, who were identified as part of the continuing leak investigation, which, by the way, was not a leak investigation in terms of Signal. Signal was not about a leak in terms of active leaking. Signal was about the accidental adding of somebody, and Hegseth himself fucked everybody. Nobody was committing a crime until Hegseth dropped battle plans into the fucking Signal chat. Nobody. It was shitty, maybe stupid, maybe too open, maybe it gave our, Russia an advantage to know what Vance was hearing from the other people in the cabinet that weren't as, hell-bent on supporting Russia as he is or tells he is. But nothing was untoward in that except a bunch of shitheels yapping at each other. Until Hegseth posted real-time attack plans before they happened. Hours before our soldiers would be over anti-aircraft weapons, he was posting in an unsecure Signal group where they would be and when. So the idea that these guys had anything to do with Hegseth's fuck-up is absurd, which means to me that there's more to it, that there's a bunch of shit going out. And a lot of this has to do with Elon Musk and China and them arranging it. Because all these motherfuckers couldn't be more MAGA. They're not deep stating Hegseth and trying to undermine shit. If anything, they wanted to go further. And, and maybe that, maybe they're calling Trump's bluff. That would be the only excuse why they would fuck up this bad on purpose, is that they're trying to push things because they know they'll trigger it, kind of helter-skelter as a political theory. They were placed on administrative leave on Tuesday. On Wednesday, Colin Carroll, the chief of staff of Deputy Defense Secretary Stephen Feinberg, was removed from the Pentagon immediately after an interview with investigators in his office. Like, they walked these fuckers out yesterday. They were he's like, hey, can you come into my office for a second? They sat down, they talked to him, and then they were never allowed to go back to their desk. That isn't, you've been talking to the Atlantic behind our backs. That's one of my buddies at the Heritage Foundation told me that you guys sent him that like a fucking meme that showed when our attack plans are happening on his fucking BlackBerry. Asshole. And he turned you in. This just reeks of that. Okay. And this all had to do with like Houthi strikes. Since arriving at the Pentagon, Hegseth, Caldwell has accompanied the defense secretary on some of his meetings with major foreign leaders. So he's sat in. Hey, look, maybe he's in trouble for talking to Hegseth's wife because she was in some of these fucking meetings too. In a signal text chain first disclosed by The Atlantic last month, Caldwell was listed as Hegseth's representative to the White House as it prepared to launch strikes in Yemen. But if you'll remember, and this is, you can tell how people just read this shit sideways, that when they read that as its representative in the chat, if you're just a breezer of the news, you might get the feeling that he's the one who posted the shit in there, and Hegseth was just in the chat, and it's his boss, and he just put that stuff in there. Hegseth posted the illegal shit, not this guy. He was just in there. Now, if he cut and pasted what was in his fucking signal and texted his fucking girlfriend or boyfriend or both, what was going to happen, that would be yet another thing where they're, was the official unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information. Notice how, by the way, they're charging them with unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information to try and take some of the heat off of Hegseth, when we all fucking know that attack plans, before they are put into place in the near future, are top secret. I don't know what kind of an asshole goes, well, sometimes, fuck you. You're going to get our people killed, dipshit. So, Selnick was punted. Caldwell was punted. And again, Caldwell was part of this Concerned Veterans for America. He was on Fox News all the time. Hegseth used to interview him all the time. And Caldwell's one of these guys, like I said, a wolf in sheep's clothing. He's one of these guys who's like, he's an isolationist in theory, and a like a neocon peacenik is the idea. Is that he like America? It's not that I don't like killing people and throwing around derogatory terms for people from the Middle East. That's not a problem. The problem I have is that it's expensive, and why do we care? We should just let those assholes kill each other. That's his theory on a bunch of these things. But it always seems to benefit Russia and China. Just for the record. Okay. He worked for Defense Priorities, a think tank that pushed for more restrained U.S. foreign policy, and was deeply skeptical of American engagement in the Middle East and support to Ukraine, namely the areas where the Wagner Group was showing up and Russia had attack plans. So in recent weeks, they've been, Joe Casper, who was Hegseth's chief of staff, ordered the investigation. All these guys are punted because of this. I don't think they're all linked to the same thing, but we will find out as shit goes on. Now, on the other hand, yes. So a piece of good news. And by the way, Chad, you still with me? You having a good time? You all right? What's going on? Yeah, I'm up. I'm on early today because this is kind of a different slice of show. I have to end at 2 my time, and then I'll be back on at 4 at our regular time on Thursday. But I'm making up for this. Is more like a background show, if it makes sense, because there's a bunch of these things that are happening, and we got to be kind of clear on what's occurring. And I wanted to throw my opinion on the pyre, as it were. So there's some obviously concerning stuff with national security and these guys being punted, and they deserve to go. I have no doubt. Fuck them. Anybody who Hegseth is like, that's my man, is probably a danger to national security and a complete fucking moron, just like he is.